You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, along with David Webb, your engineer and broadcast producer, back up at the mothership of KGTL AM 620 and FM 100. I'm broadcasting today live from the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway, the home of the Story team, the home of Story Productions, and the corner of all things possible and prosperous. Wishing you a great day. We've got a lot to cover today. You're in for a treat. This is the second installment of our Candidate Forum. Last week, we brought you Gus Van Dyke and Corbin Arno. Today promises to bring you two more candidates. Remember, there's 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the Homer City Council. Today, maybe council member, the incumbent, Brian Zach. Haven't been able to confirm that. We've been leaving messages with Councilman Zach today and not able to reach him. So he's a maybe. We'll just plan that he's going to follow through and be here at the 1 o'clock hour, but we don't know. Haven't been able to confirm. And Justin Arnold, we did just confirm Justin Arnold will be here for the second half of the program starting at 1 o'clock. So please don't go anywhere. It's going to be an exciting show. And it's really important, too. It's kind of interesting. I've had a lot of conversations today. It's just been one of those crazy busy days, and I appreciate them. And when you wake up unemployed every single day and you go out into the world and you forage for all that you will eat, it's good to be busy. A busy day is a good day. Some Blackwater Bend Espresso coffee to keep me going through this busy day. And I've been having a lot of conversations and centered around this concept of what's going on in the larger, big picture, the world landscape, the national landscape, the state landscape, the borough or county, depending on where you're listening, and then your local landscape. It all matters. I mean, it's all relevant, and it's all important, and it's all very, very key. If you can't make changes in your own backyard, and trust me when I say the new front line is your backyard, if you can't make changes here and take the time to pay attention to what's happening here, then the rest is a foregone conclusion. I mean, it really is. I've got an article here. I wasn't going to get into it immediately, but let's do it. This is from the Anchorage Daily News. Now, your 2 senators, it says here, Alaska senators say they're not sold on Syrian strike. This from yesterday's paper, Anchorage Daily News. President Barack Obama wants permission from Congress for a military strike against Syria, the Syrian government. But the members of the Alaskan delegation are far from ready to give it. Now, the delegation being, of course, made up of Senator Mark Begich, Senator Lisa Murkowski, and Congressman Don Young. Congressman Young was not available for the interview. He was out moose hunting, which is what an Alaskan ought to be doing right now. Senator Begich was already back in his hometown of Washington, D.C., and was basically available, as was Lisa Murkowski, who is still in her home state of Alaska. And basically, they're skeptical at this point. And I wanted to share a couple of their comments. It makes the president weak, said Lisa Murkowski. It makes the administration weak. It makes this country weak, she said in a phone interview Monday. If he didn't mean it, he shouldn't have said it. She's referring to the red line comment that the president made last summer regarding the use of chemical weapons in Syria. Now, Senator Murkowski goes on to say, what happens if Syria comes back, Iran goes nuts, North Korea decides we want to get in on this game too? She said, what is our long-term strategy in the Middle East, and how does this intersect? I have to hear that from the administration. Begich, who has returned to Washington, D.C., again, his home state, and he is, of course, running for re-election. He's already into the throes of the re-election campaign, said in a phone interview that he has no doubt, underline, no doubt, he may be the one person in the world that has no doubt that the Syrian government did do this to their own people. He's got no doubts. And yet, Begich would support a strike only if it narrowly targeted Assad's chemical weapons without putting American forces on the ground in Syria, and came with a clear cost accounting, because that's chief in his mind right now, and an exit strategy. So he's hitting all the highlights, right? He's hitting all the high points. Anybody who might be concerned about the cost of it, anybody who might be concerned about strategically striking only the weapons and not the people. There will always be collateral damage, Senator Begich. And if you have no doubt that this was done, then I'm surprised that you're not getting behind your president and just saying, okay, we want to do the strike then. We want to strike at the Assad regime, if you have no doubt. Well, why would Senator Begich say he's got no doubt? He's trying to align himself with the administration. He doesn't want to be too far afield. This is my speculation, but some might say, said Begich, that this is putting pretty high standards on the situation. Well, yeah, my answer is yes. When you're putting American lives and resources on the line, you bet you should have high standards, said Senator Begich. Some will say that the position I've taken would make it impossible to ever support a strike, and that may be true. Remember, he's running for re-election. He's got to be a little bit astride the Obama administration, but yet he's also got to get on board with the American and Alaskan people who don't want another war. I mean, I can't figure out where he's coming or going. What is my point? They're just people like you and me. Senator Begich is no different than you. He's got the same, apparently, according to this article, Senator Lisa Murkowski says that availed to her thus far are only public documents and public information. She's got no classified information. So she's making statements as a leader, as one of the leaders of the free world. She's making statements on the same information you have available. Mark Begich, the same. Don Young, who's been there since 1920, essentially, is not making any statements because he's out in the bush trying to kill Bullwinkle. However, his spokesperson, Mr. Anderson, said that there isn't sufficient evidence yet to warrant a strike, and they're reluctant to give any authority to do so. Now, this is Congressman Young's office. Here's my point. You and I need to know where we stand on this, and I think you do. I want to know where you stand. Have you spoken to your senators? Have you spoken out? Have you sent them emails or left voicemails or sent them written letters if you're of that ilk? And some people still do send letters. I'd like to hear from you. Send me a text message. Here's the mission. Go or no go to strike on Syria. What would you say if you had a voice, and you do? Use it now. Text me, go or no go on this mission. What would you advise to your senators that will be representing you in Washington, D.C. as the president makes his case? Go or no go? I want you to send a message now. Text message me, 299-7653, 299-7653. You don't have to use your name. Just say go or no go. And this is on the strike on Syria. Both of our senators are playing politics as usual, sitting on the fence, speaking out of both sides of their mouth. I'd like to know what you would say. Go or no go? That's the bottom line. Hey, we've got your Blackwater Bend Espresso Mind Bender coming up here in a little bit. We'll give you an opportunity to win one of 2 free coffee cards. We've got the Michael Kennedy update. That's right, the Kennedy compound. I'll bring you a theatrical version of that conclusion in the news. And, oh, man, we've got the preamble to the Alaska Constitution, so much more. I want you to stick around to what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. An Alaskan Constitution moment, this brought to you by the Anchor River Inn. Family owned and operated for over 50 years in the heart of Anchor Point, the Anchor River Inn. Don't forget, you can always keep track of what's happening at the Anchor River by going to their website, anchorriverinn.com, and check out the Anchor Cam. Anchor River Inn. Want to thank them. And don't forget, they've got gifts, accommodations, great family-style food, a full bar. They've got entertainment. They've got a grocery store. You need it in Anchor Point, you go to the Anchor River Inn. The preamble to the Constitution of the state of Alaska Constitution reads, "We, the people of Alaska, grateful to God and those who founded our nation and pioneered this great land in order to secure and transmit to succeeding generations our heritage of political, civil, and religious liberty within the Union of States, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the state of Alaska." Every now and then I got to pull out the Alaska Constitution and reread it, and the Declaration of Rights, and it's worth reading. The article that's coming up in our Blackwater Bend Espresso question is speaking to the Declaration of Rights. It's such a powerful document. It really, if ever you doubt the direction we're headed, if ever you doubt the direction that the state was founded under, and where our state founders wanted us to go in such alignment with the United States Constitution and its founding, just go back to the Constitution. The cool thing is, you just, if you Google it, the first option you have is Senator preemptive, Lieutenant Governor Meade Treadwell's website. It takes you right to the Lieutenant Governor's website, and posted there is the Constitution of Alaska. It's really something that I'm sharing with my family at home. I encourage you to do the same thing. It's powerful, and it's very directive. There's no ambiguity. There's no gray space. Again, a Blackwater Bend espresso break. Speaking of which, it's time for the Alaskan Mindbender. Blackwater Bend is your source for gourmet, handcrafted, roasted to perfection, and blended just for you coffee. Tiffany and I took Zoe up to the state fair last week. We actually didn't go. It's the joy of having a 17-year-old. You don't have to accompany them. But she was going to see Three Doors Down. And like right now, 50% of you, maybe more, going, what? Three Doors, what? It's a band. Anyway, so we left really early in the morning because she wanted to visit with a college buddy for the majority of the day. They wanted to go to the fair together. So we get to Blackwater Bend. I mean, we're talking at the wee dawn hours, and sure enough, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. And I was smiling inside out. And I said, man, I got to get me 2 coffees for the road. You know that. I like to drink, even if it's warm or lukewarm, it still beats anything else I'm going to find anywhere else in Alaska. Blackwater Bend Espresso. Stop what you're doing right now. Literally, stop what you're doing. Drive out to Blackwater Bend right now while you're listening to this program. No, not you, Dave. Everybody else but Dave Webb. Stop what you're doing. Drive out and get the greatest cup of coffee and let them know I sent you. Please do that. Blackwater Bend Espresso. Question, your opportunity to win, true or false. Article 1, Section 2 of the Alaska Constitution reads, all political power is inherent in the people. All government originates with the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the people as a whole. Enter to win right now. Is that true or false? Is that Article 1, Section 2 of the Alaska Constitution? Your name and answer to 299-7653. Text me right now, 299-7653. And again, it reads, all political power is inherent in the people, and so on and so forth. Is that true or false? Article 1, Section 2 of the Alaska Constitution. My goal really is that you and I together know our Constitution so well. When we see an ordinance, when we see a law proposed, when we see something happening on a statewide or local or borough basis, we know, wait a minute, this is totally not in alignment with the Constitution, with the founding of this state, let alone the United States Constitution. But I'm in love with our Alaskan Constitution, really, really like it, and hence the opportunity to talk about it. Looks like, quick glance at the textual device, go. Everybody is saying go on the Syria mission. I've not even gotten a single no-go. Again, if you were advising the president, if you were advising your senators and your representative in D.C., would the Syrian missile strike be a go or no-go for you? Go and strike or no-go? And no ambiguities, not yet, need more. No, it's either right now you've got to make a decision. We do it or don't. It's go or go, no-go on the mission. Which is it for you? 299-7653. And while you're there, of course, you can enter to win the Blackwater Bend Espresso Mindbender. All right, now for a okay, that's... I can't do 2 things at once, so I'm going to put my phone aside, keep texting, 299-7653, while I provide for you a theatrical rendition of the news. Now, this is not rehearsed. I am not a trained thespian. I'm just sitting here talking to you, and I'm just going to give this a shot. So I'd appreciate it if you are a thespian, if you are an actor or actress, that you not criticize my rendition of what I call the Michael Kennedy compound. Case closed. The city came after this good-hearted man with everything they had. City manager Walt Reedy led the charge on his white steed. Astride him was his minions, Rick Abood, city planner, and his faithful companion, the Enforcer. Together, they sought out the most remote parcel. You have to have someone draw you a map to get to the Kennedy compound. But once there, make no mistake about it, Walt Reedy unsheathed his sword, the city attorney. He thrust and parried, and at last, after having exhausted tens of thousands of your tax dollars, this quarter-acre parcel tucked into the woods in a rural, untraveled section of Homer is at last mildly compliant. And with a swing of the pen, the case is closed. A minute face-saving fraction of the $1.86 million in fines is held in suspension, and an even minuter, minuscule, face-saving portion of the attorney's fees are proclaimed as ours. Oh, sweet is the taste of victory over the people by the people. Congratulations, Walt, to a job Done. Another 2-year reign over this cosmic hamlet by the sea. That didn't go over as well as I thought it did. See, you should never do anything unrehearsed, but I mean, seriously, we've put this man through an untold amount of stress and strife over a property that you had to, if you didn't know Mike, you would never know his property existed, except for the handful of neighbors. And as far as I know, the people I've talked to that were his neighbors love Mike, as most of the community, I'd say 99.9% do. So the fact that we, the people, have trampled on another citizen of the community to a point where tens of thousands of your tax dollars are completely wasted, you'll never get them back, and the agreement that was made, trust me, I'm telling you, it was to save face, period. End of story. That's all it is. Otherwise, they would have continued after him. But they wanted to save face, get out of the situation, getting public heat because Mike is such a great guy, and everybody knew the score that he really was the original reuse, recycle, and renew guy in town. It's frustrating to be a taxpayer and see that kind of money spent. A friend of mine, Elisa, posted on Facebook yesterday this song by John Denver, and I thought, man, this is such a cool song. Why have we never played it on the Alaska Matters? I'm thinking of the Blackwater Bend Espresso Mindbender. I hope you enter to win. So we're going to go take a quick break, but before we do, I want to remind you, coming up after the 1 o'clock news, Brian Zach, City Councilman, and proposed City Council person Justin Arnold. As we ease into this quick break, I want to start playing the John Denver's Alaska.
When I was a child and I lived in the city, I dreamed of Alaska, so far away, and I dreamed I was flying over mountains and glaciers. Somehow I knew that I'd live there one day. Well, it took me some growing and a fair bit of schooling, a little bit of trouble to get on the move, and I felt like a loser, but I turned out the winner when it came to Alaska, the land that I love. Here's to Alaska, here's to the people, here's to the wild, and here's to the free. Here's to my life in a chosen country. Here's to Alaska and me.
Still time to enter to win. I want to send you out to Blackwater Bend for free. And every time I send somebody out there, I guarantee it, they send me a text and say, hey, thanks. And if they've never been before, they're just just grateful. Just like, wow, this is awesome. And if they've already been a regular customer, they're just really appreciative. I want to send you to Blackwater Bend for free. It's a complete coffee card. And they're more than coffee at Blackwater Bend. They send everything. Tasty treats, just the whole 9 yards. You got to get out there. Here's the question, true or false. Article 1, Section 2 of the Alaska Constitution reads, all political power is inherent in the people. All government originates with the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the people as a whole. Enter to win now. Your name and answer. Is that true or false? Text only, please, 299-7653. Name and answer, 299-7653. And I'm drinking Blackwater Bend right now. That's the cool thing, too. You could take the beans home with you. Do what I do. Pick up a pound or two of beans and grind them fresh for yourself. It's awesome. Now, this comes from the Homer News. Dr. Sayer supporters want answers. This was written by CZ Grievenberg. And she says, no, Dr. Sayer is not retiring. Those of you in the area for any amount of time at all know Dr. Sayer is a noted and lauded surgeon here in the community since, gosh, I don't know. I want to say the early 70s. Recently, I had a person relay to me that Dr. Sayer had been taken off the emergency call list. I saw Dr. Sayer that day, and he wasn't sure what was happening. Again, this is a letter in the Homer News, letter to the editor. On August 7th and 8th, a beautiful half-page ad appeared in both local papers thanking Dr. Sayer for his years of service. It was paid for by the local union. The ad stated what so many of us feel, but some thought it meant Dr. Sayer was retiring. Dr. Sayer was not informed ahead of time of what was happening relative to the rotation. This decision was made by the operating board of the South Peninsula Hospital. Dr. Sayer has helped and saved many, many lives, and the letter goes on to just, applaud Dr. Sayer and what a great guy he is. Well, there's also a petition together, apparently, that is located at Cece's Kitchen, Plymire and Schultz Bookkeeping, Boogs Automotive, and Dr. Sayer's office. And they would encourage you to come by any of those locations, sign the petition that is going to the board, apparently, asking that Dr. Sayer stay on the rotation and or just more understanding of what's behind this. Well, when I read this letter, I feel embarrassed that I'd missed it until last night. I was at a dinner party and somebody mentioned it, and I said, what are you talking about? So I went to the website, the Homer News website, and found this letter, and then I found along with it another letter from the same paper, same issue, Dr. Sayer going the extra mile, in this case going the extra hundreds of miles, is what Dr. Paul Sayer did when he heard my wife Ann was in serious health problems. Dr. Sayer flew his plane through terrible weather conditions August 16th, having to turn around several times just trying to cross the Cook Inlet, flying back up to refuel in Anchorage, then only getting to Kenai and having to drive the rest of the way. This comes to you from Richard and Ann Koskovich, and it was a real serious surgery. He came back, saved yet another life, and they wanted to let the community know how much they appreciated that, and certainly Dr. Sayer. So after reading these things, I was confused. So I contacted the spokesperson for the South Peninsula Hospital. I've not gotten a message back, but in fairness, I just left the message this morning. I'm hoping to communicate with her at some point in the near future, and at least finding out where we can go to get answers and where we can go to find out what exactly is happening, because I don't want to go off of just what I'm reading here. I want to know exactly what's going on, and you have to remember, so you own the hospital as a taxpayer, as a member of the Kenai Peninsula Borough. The borough owns the hospital, well, and now the Homer Medical Clinic as well, but you deserve answers, and you need to find out what's going on. So there may be nothing here, maybe just a misunderstanding. Either way, I've asked, and I'll share with you any information I get. I want to remind you also, October 1st, you'll be hearing a lot more about this from myself and others. It's the bag ban repeal. The petition was successfully put onto the ballot. There was enough signatures, I should say, that were signed. The question's going to go on the ballot. And I just implore upon you, even if you are extremely, emotional. Plastic bagophobic, Dave, is not a term. But if this is an emotional gut thing for you, that's like, I hate plastic, and you hate the lifestyle of the disposable economy we live in, fine, I understand it. I don't like the bags any more than you do. In other words, you know what I hate worse, though, is buying a toy for my grandchildren or buying a new knife or whatever it is, and you've got this like 3 pounds of plastic that you've got to cut and hack through that goes immediately into the landfill. That you want to take a stand against something, let's really address the issue, the greater issue at large, rather than bring us down to a third world subsistence level of bring your own sack in, you don't have a choice, or we're going to just kill a bunch of trees and force you into paper bags. This is Behavior Modification 101. This is Agenda 21 at work, bringing the first world down, bringing the third world up to the middle, everybody meet in the middle, our common destiny. We've heard this. Just reject it. Reject it out of hand. And if you are a business owner, like one that I fully intend to contact, at this point I'm not going to give out names or business names at this point, but this person is ardently against the bags in general and ardently for the ban. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. And I'd ask for anybody who is against the plastic bags to not impose a new law with no teeth. It's completely unenforceable. It's ridiculous. It's draconian. It's absolutely not even addressing the real problem of litter and pollution. And so I'd ask you likewise, if you are of the mindset that you want to ban these bags, why don't you ban them from your business? Why don't you ban them from your life? You take personal responsibility over your life, have an influence on the people around you, which you can do easily. Work with your nonprofits, work with your Chamber of Commerce, work with printers and other organizations. They can get these bags, reusable bags, printed, use them as a marketing tool, make it an incentive to get on board rather than this stick that you're beating us about the head with. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody the other day who met somebody from out of the area at the grocery store, and they're like, what is with this paper bag business? We feel like we've we've gone back in time, and it's like 1974. What are you guys doing with these paper bags? It's insane. I want to see it at the polls October 1st. Let's repeal this. Let's put it back in its place and put the responsibility back on you, the individual. You, the individual. I hope to meet Brian Zach on the other side of this news break. I don't know whether he's going to make it or not. We'll see. Justin Arnold will be here. He is a candidate for the Homer City Council. We'll find out why he's running and what he's about. We'll also bring you the answer to the Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mindbender, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you would advise your senators to act in Syria. I'm Chris Story. See you in just a moment on Alaska Matters. You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Chris Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. Along with me is David Webb, engineering this broadcast back up at the mothership of KGTL, AM 620 and FM 100. FM 100. Don't forget about the FM dial. And if you missed this broadcast, of course, you can always find me at AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. It always promises to be an adventure. We're postponing the third installment of the Heartland Ride with Mike Pate to next week. The third installment we will air next week. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to our website, AdventureAlaskaRadio.com, and you can listen to the first two installments and follow Mike along his journey from Oregon, well, first of all, to mountains in Russia and elsewhere, to then Oregon, all the way across the country to New York, all by himself on a bicycle. Why did he do it? Well, you can find out on the Heartland Ride. Next week, we'll do the third installment. In just a moment, and up next, you'll meet candidate Brian Zach. He's a current city councilman. He is the incumbent. There are 4 people running for 2 jobs, basically. 2 council seats are up. 4 individuals have raised their hands. Last week, we spoke to Corbin Arno and Gus Van Dyke. Again, you can hear that interview at AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. Today, we'll talk with Brian Zach in just a moment, and then coming up a little later, Justin Arnold, who would like to unseat. Well, they all would like to unseat Mr. Zach, and we'll find out kind of where Brian's coming from with some of the decisions and ordinances that have been passed and some of the decisions he's made. In the meantime, I want to send you out to Blackwater Bend for free. We've got several people that have entered correctly, several that have entered incorrectly. That's okay. Enter to win now. True or false? Article 1, Section 2 of the Alaska Constitution reads, all political power is inherent in the people. All government originates with the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the people as a whole. Enter to win your name and answer. Text me now, 299-7653. Oh, by the way, ended up, since last we spoke, ended up with quite a few of you that are giving the no-go on the Syrian mission. Would you go? Would you take us into war in Syria? Go or no go? We finally did get quite a few, actually. I would say the percentage is tipping 70-30, 70% say go, and 30% thus far saying no go to Syria. Remember, you have as much information in front of you right now, potentially, as your senators. They're saying, well, you know, what I told you earlier in the program from the Anchorage Daily News. You know what they're saying. You have the same information. I trust your instincts. Let's ask you, would you go or no go? 299-7653. And with me is Councilman Zach, Brian Zach. Welcome to Alaska Matters, Brian.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming along. And no matter whether or not I disagree with you, and I got to be honest, in a lot of cases I have found myself on the opposite side of the coin from you, I still appreciate that you're willing to represent your community and to stand up and be a council person. I'm perplexed, though, Brian, because I know you to be a business person, and I know that your most recent attempt at the last city council meeting to bring forward a water sewer rate commission and some of the other things that are definitely in alignment with a free-thinking, private practice business type person. I got to ask you just first of all, explain the thinking behind proposing a repeal of the non-prepared foods tax. I've been a big oh man, that's really gotten under my skin, and a lot of other people as well. So explain to us, why did you propose that we repeal that non-prepared foods tax holiday?
I think that was quite a few years ago. I don't know what it was related to the budget back then that I had proposed that. I think it was addressing the budget concerns at the time. I actually think that's going to come up again. I heard it being discussed. I would not be a proponent of putting that out there to repeal that based on some of the cost, the spending that we're currently doing. So far, what I have not seen in the last 2 years is any cost reduction. So therefore, unless we started to see some cost reductions, and the city's going to say, "Oh, we've been doing some," but I haven't seen enough, and I haven't seen it discussed enough at the council level to ever bring that forward myself again at this time.
Well, let's talk about, and I consider this a tax, and you may disagree with me, but I believe that when you inherently raise the cost of doing business to some that are in the city limits and not those that are outside the city limits, I think you create a tax on the citizenry ultimately who will end up paying a higher cost, if not the business owner directly. So let me ask you about twice you voted to ban the plastic bags. The first time you supported it, and then Mayor Hornaday struck it down, vetoed it, and then you supported it again. What's the thinking in your mind about banning a certain thickness of bag at the checkout stand?
I think that was just a minor, small, and some people would say that it's a big, impact on their lives, and I apologize for that if it is a big impact. But to me, it was, supporting a small kind of step forward for thinking, and it's made me personally think about a lot of different ways I can reduce what's going up there into the landfill. I know it's an impact on some people. I agree. I know that you've discussed this in the past on the program, and a lot of people in Homer that signed a petition against it. Mm-hmm. I don't, from my standpoint, the plastic bags is kind of a message saying that government needs to be, we're aware of what's happening here, as far as, planning for the future, and I'm talking way out there in the future and what we can do better. And I thought the plastic bags, as the ordinance was put forward, was a good way, to say, hey, what can we start to do as a city? I know that citizens themselves are much stronger and much more adept at having that kind of impactful change. And hopefully this was a message saying that City of Homer's on board in case you want to move in that direction greater in the future.
Well, let's talk about spending. You brought up costs, and we've seen for several years that there's not been a cost of living allowance increase for our city employees, but I'm confused. We, at the same time, have parked and these are approximate figures, but I believe it's $187,000 that was recently parked under the label of windfall, parked into the permanent fund, and so into the Bank of Homer, if you will. And so on the one hand, we're getting windfalls, taxes collected, generated out there by the drill rig, the Endeavor, but not sharing the wealth. We're tucking it away for I don't know, future generations. I mean, tell me a little bit behind the supporting putting that into a windfall/rainy day account for someday maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, you can put it away for rainy day maybe, planning for reserves. It's good to strategize for reserve funds. However, when interest rates are low, it's not earning a lot of money.
Yeah.
And if you're going to take money, it might have been windfall, $185,000 this year from the Endeavor rig. Should all of that totally been gone into reserves, windfall? I think not. I think I agree with you. The city collects all the taxes. They're the beneficiary of what happens within a community where you have some economic engines. But a lot of that I think that we need to find ways to put that to work to increase the effectiveness of the individual business owners and the citizens. And for me, that's kind of why I'm often in disagreement with the current full council, because I'm trying to communicate that, hey, how can we find ways to lower the cost of doing business, thereby increasing the income of those businesses, and maybe they have a little bit more money to do advertising or make some improvements to their property, which then increases tourism, keeps our city looking good, because the City of Homer can't improve or help all the businesses be successful, but how can we do that? Reduce their costs. And where there's opportunity, some of that money possibly, I think there was a suggestion to help reduce water and sewer rates. And once you ask that question, I'll kind of share why I think some of that money should have gone to reduce those rates. I think I helped propose that. It didn't get a second, but I at least said, hey, some of that money might be well spent toward, the big costly water and sewer system where we have limited users. That would have been my suggestion.
Okay, well, let's talk about water and sewer. You brought it up. Water and sewer rates, according to a CHM2 Hill or C2MH, whatever the company is, the engineering firm, was contracted by the city of Soldotna to do a rate study. They did a rate study in 2010 of the peninsula all the way over into Kodiak and found that Homer was at the top of the heap as far as cost of water and sewer. And again, I don't attribute that to the staff at the water treatment or sewer treatment plant. I attribute that to management by the current city manager. Talk to me about that. I mean, you did support tucking some of the money away from the Endeavor rig towards water and sewer rates, but then that was quickly swept under the rug by saying, and I think several council members and the mayor said, well, obviously you don't know what you're talking about. And even the city attorney at $9 million an hour stood up and said, well, wait a minute, that's against state statute to take from one enterprise fund and put to another. But nobody really addressed the tax money that came in. So setting aside the docking fees, just talking about that tax money, I tied it to why can't we increase the cost of living allowance for the city employees? Well, how about what you proposed, which was to put it towards the water and sewer rates, and that got no traction whatsoever. What's going to happen with water and sewer rates? If Brian Zach's reelected to the council, I mean, are you going to do anything other than lip service towards helping us pay less for our water and sewer?
Well, I'd probably right away bring back the ordinance that failed at the last council meeting. That was to propose a water and sewer commission. I feel like, yes, this will cost a little bit of money, but I think it's definitely something that has to happen in order to figure out a solution to a long-term problem that we have. Neither the cost causers, which are, cost causers, I don't think they're cost causers. They're the ones using it. They're the ones on the current system. It wasn't their choice, perhaps, to get on the current system, but because they have a business and they need to provide water, and sewer to many bathrooms at a hotel, for instance, they actually need to be on the water and sewer, so they're on it. A lot of people that have, because of the LID system, local improvement districts, they may have been included without, and currently in Ketchback Drive, you got this situation where just over 50% decided they wanted a local improvement district, so the other 45% are going to come along whether they like it or not, and whether the cost of their lot's only $34,000, and they're going to be paying a high cost to hook up, almost more than what the value of the lot is. Just not right. So whether you're a high volume user or a low volume user, the current system under the current rate model doesn't work, and the reason for that is that it's not built out enough. So the users, whether you're a low cost user or a high cost user, are impacted in the current situation. And that's why, until we figure out a system to get more users connected, there has to be some additional financing of this enterprise system.
Well, and I hear you, and I hear Councilman Burgess talk about it constantly. His solution is infilling, and yet you have a planning department and a code enforcement officer that is doing nothing to encourage people to build out, to expand, to come to Homer, to place their business here, etc. And so those two are not congruent whatsoever, and it ignores what many are bringing up is that administration costs are too high. And that goes to the task force member, Ken Kasner, who pointed out that literally it's one day a week that all city employees must, according to this current budget, be working on nothing but water and sewer one day a week. And he asked the question, is it Thursday? I mean, what day is it? Well, Brian, I know you've got to run. Let's just wrap this up. Give us your elevator speech as to why Councilman Brian Zach should be elected again to go back for your third term. Why should the people put you back in office?
Well, it's definitely because I don't vote the way the other council member. I don't come there with a preconceived idea. Take that CH2M Hill study you said on the rate study, Kodiak. Well, you also have to look at a situational study of how few users we have here in Homer and water and sewer. So with my background over the last 5 years on the city council, I've developed an awareness, and if I can communicate this to the other council members, and I think, the good news is, I know during this election we're going to see at least one other council member get elected that believes the same way, that I do, and I'm going to have a little bit greater support. Perhaps two of us, listening to all of, the people who come and within the community and share their concerns, maybe we'll have a little bit, with a little bit more debate going on as opposed to a single person trying to, communicate to somebody who's already got their mind made up. Maybe we'll have that opportunity.
All right. Councilman Brian Zach, thank you for being on the program.
Okay, Chris Story, thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You're welcome. And don't go anywhere because we've got contender Justin Arnold coming up right here on Alaska Matters. You're listening to Alaska Matters. We're in the middle of our candidate forum. You just heard from incumbent City Council person Brian Zach asking for your vote once again. In fact, we did a little fact checking during the break just then, and it was actually just this winter, not years ago, but just this winter that Councilman Zach did propose an ordinance that would have, in fact, repealed your non-prepared food holiday. Your non-prepared food holiday, according to Councilman Zach, this winter would have gone away. Anyway, I'm sure that was just a misspeak at that moment, and no harm done. But with me now is the contender for that very seat, Mr. Justin Arnold. Justin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
You're welcome. Now, you might have heard earlier that I was once again touting the bag ban repeal petition, and the bag ban repeal will be on the ballot this October, and that was your baby. Why? Just reiterate, maybe as a way of introduction to who you are, why you went about spending so many hours and time and all that time you put into that effort to repeal the bag ban.
It's actually funny. I was just listening to what Brian Zach was saying about why he voted for it twice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the exact reason why I went and spent all my time to go against it, which is I don't believe the government is our nanny to tell us which way to move and what way a business or an individual should act if it's not hurting somebody else. Pretty much the freedom to do as you want as long as you're not hurting somebody else.
Right. And yeah. Anyway, I'm grateful that that's going to be on the ballot. I think it's going to pass, and I've been encouraging people to, even if you describe you're self-described as green, environmentalist, and all this. I love the environment. Everybody I know loves this place. That's why we live here. But I'm with you. I do not want to be nannied. Well, so we talked about the non-prepared foods tax. Councilman Zach, did say that he's heard rumblings that it may come back to the fore. How would you handle that if it comes up, if you're elected to the Homer City Council and it comes up that woe is us, we need more money, and we just need to pay more for our bread and our apples and our peanut butter over the course of the winter. We need to pay more for our non-prepared foods. If it was a Councilman Arnold, how would you handle yet another attack on that tax holiday?
I believe the tax holiday is only for the winter months. Is that
correct? That's correct. Just the
yep. I think as a commercial fisherman myself, we all work a lot of seasonal jobs to live here in Homer, and some of us work 2 or 3 different seasonal jobs to do so. Those are the tough months for a lot of people in our community. How about we look at where we're spending the money, not where we're going to get the money? I talked to the mayor about that the other day after the meeting of the Council of the Whole, and it seemed like it wasn't how we could reduce costs, it was how are we going to get the money to pay the costs they told us we have to.
Mm-hmm. You hear that from the current council administration, definitely, and you hear it from the borough assembly, that if we are to get a $50,000 exemption on our primary residences here, then no problem. All they're going to do is pass the savings on in other new taxes or increased mill rates or other ways. So it's refreshing to hear that you would actually rather approach what we're spending than just increasing the income.
Well, you know what? We all look at that in our personal finances every day. We have to cut costs on things when things are going and not as well as we would like.
Now, you've been really outspoken also, Justin. You've been outspoken against and about the increased water fees to apartments and to tenants specifically. As you own a multifamily unit, you know that just for those that aren't aware, $45 a month was the user fee to just be connected to city water and sewer. It on a triplex then went to 3 times that, $45 per unit. A 10plex went from $45 a month to $450 a month before you ever opened the spigot. And Justin, you spoke eloquently about that. Reiterate your stance and why you spoke so much about that cost.
It's not just about the cost to my triplex that I own and the renters that rent here. I mean, the costs, of course, get passed on. I mean, if I have to pay $45 per unit, I'm not even allowed to have more than one water meter. They won't allow it because they can't shut them off separately. I thought that was kind of a backwards way of doing it. The City of Homer, from my belief and my studying, is used to have a meter size charge, not, mine's the smallest meter you can have. It's a house meter. If you have a 6-inch meter, of course, we have to supply that demand during those peak hours for a 6-inch meter instead of a 2-inch meter. You're not going to run 100 apartments or a restaurant off of a regular-sized home meter. And we went away with that charge supposedly because of the time it took to make sure we knew which meter was in which place. It really just comes down to the thing we need to fix is it costing $100 a foot to hook up to city sewer, and not, pass the buck from the next person to the next person, like a couple proposals that were brought forward, which would have passed the buck to the people who had city water but no city sewer.
There's been a lot of talk on the current city council that, and from the mayor, and I in fact wrote an op-ed piece for the Homer News, I believe it was, that was to speak up is to step up, and a lot of people will tell you, if you're so concerned, about these issues, why don't you just run for office? Well, here you are running for office, and why? Why are you running for office?
I guess it's not a very politically correct way to put it. My grandpa Kenny always told me, he said, if you don't speak up yourself and stand up for it, you don't have a right to complain. And, I used to complain about all the different things the city council did, and all of a sudden I went, you know what? I'm going to try to do something about it. And I Googled how to repeal a city ordinance. That's how it all started. And now I'd like to repeal a few more idiotic laws and try to make a change before I have to spend 2 hours fixing one stupid law that costs one business alone in our town $40,000 a year, just in increased costs, which comes out of their bonuses.
Yeah. Well, it not only comes out of their bonuses. I mean, it's this is the thing too that I don't think a lot of politically minded people understand is that when you increase the cost of doing business and then they pass that cost along to the consumer or remove it from wages or benefits or, profit. People are in business to make a profit, and to survive, you have to make enough profit. What's your reaction to Councilman Lewis's response to, all of this cost of living in Homer is that it's just expensive to live here and just get used to it? How do you respond to that?
Well, I need to do more research on how the city budget is, balanced and such. But I look at, city of Anchor Point, or I guess it's not really a city. It's not
incorporated
that way. But you look at their water costs. A lot of them don't even have water meters. They're charged a flat rate based on being hooked to the system. It really comes down to about half the cost in our current rate structure is towards, the people that are needed to run the system just so we can charge for the system. I think there's a lot of more perfect ways to do it, but number one is not having the most expensive water and electricity pretty much in the nation that I know of.
All right, Justin, I'm just running short on time. I appreciate you being here. You've got a lot of ideas. Is there a way people can contact you if they want to know more about you?
Yeah, feel free. I have my information, my personal address, and my cell phone number on the candidate website there on the City of Homer. Give me a call at my cell phone anytime.
All right. This is the contender for Brian Zach's seat there, one of the council seats he'd like to occupy, Justin Arnold. Thank you, Justin, for being part of the program. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
You betcha. Don't go anywhere. We have more to come and your replies to these questions we've been asking here on Alaska Matters. All right, Blackwater Bend Espresso, the Alaskan Mindbender. In fact, all political power is inherent in the people. Yeah, that is Article 1, Section 2 of the Alaska Constitution. Get to know it. Terry and Nancy, you're both winners. You'll be going to the Blackwater Bend Espresso for free. Terry and Nancy, thank you, and thank you to everybody else who entered to win. A record number of you did enter today. I've never had this many people enter. I appreciate it sincerely. Also, I wanted to read a couple of other text messages real quick. Don't have a lot of time. This one from a listener says, harbor fees for oil rig was income that should have held down our harbor fees, not a windfall. Our harbor fees are going up every year. City should get more income. It would get more income if they were supportive of harbor business. There you go. And I thought this was interesting. No go on Syria. America should not stick their nose where it don't belong. America should first fix problems in America and then maybe think about going over there. And yeah, that was a majority of the people ended up saying no go. So it flip-flopped from 70-30 to actually 30-70. 30% of the respondents said go, and a majority said no go. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's about that, just at a quick glance. All right, I want to thank you again and remind you, if you missed any portion of this program, you can go hear it back. Listen again to Councilman Zach, what he said, and Justin Arnold, the contender. And last week, you can listen to Gus Van Dyke and Corbin Arno. All of that at AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. I want to thank Dave Webb and everybody up at KGTL for making this program possible, and our great sponsors, of course, and you. Without you, I'm just talking to myself. Now go. Have a great day in the great land. Bye.